My name is Gregor van der Schewski, and I will be talking today about how to install Cloudmesh on your system. This is a local system install, and there are other system installs available, such as in a virtual machine on India, or as part of a Vagrant machine that you can run on your local machine. But we will be discussing today how to install it on your local computer. To do so, I'd like to visit you the page mycloudmesh.org/learning, where the documentation is provided in written form. This is probably the best information, as we will be correcting information in that particular page in case we find errors or improvement suggestions. So let's go to this page. It will be redirecting you to this web page here that is hosted on GitHub. And here we are browsing into the section Cloudmesh. Previously, we gave you already an overview about the many features of Cloudmesh. This was just a very brief overview. So we will be learning as we go a little bit more after we have installed Cloudmesh. So let's set up Cloudmesh. We go to the setup page, and we have a variety of setup mechanisms. One is in the OpenStack VM, and one is, for example, as a virtual box. But here we will be talking about how to install it on your laptop or desktop machine, and we visit this particular section. Please note that this quick start is designed for Ubuntu 14.04 or OS X. If you are not running such a machine, you can go right to the OpenStack installation instructions that we have. Certainly, Cloudmesh could be run on other machines. However, we do not have right now the time to deal with this particular issue. One of the things that we have to do is we have to also set your username, your portal username that you have obtained in order to access, for example, future systems as a shell variable. Let's assume your name is Albert, then you set it with export portal name equal Albert, and you also need to be setting your project ID. Well, where do you get the project ID from? So let's figure this out. So we go into FutureGrid, and in FutureGrid itself, we have a projects page. We can go to the list page, and in the list page, you will probably find the project that you have for your course. Let's assume you have, for example, the FG452 course. Then you will be using without dashes and lowercase FG452 as the project name. So let's go ahead here, and then here we will be saying FG452. Before we can start, we have to create a virtual environment. We want to avoid that you impact your current Python setup on your machine. If you are not familiar with virtual env, then you should probably be reading up on it. But in general, we want to install for ourselves in virtual env in the user/env directory with the command virtual env. This is here. Then we source this activation script, and then our cloud is be activated. I have already done that, so I have currently a virtual env installed, and I have also created myself a Cloudmesh directory in which I will be downloading Cloudmesh. So let's go about and download Cloudmesh. We need to be cloning it from Git. So we say git clone. It downloads the Cloudmesh code from Git. And let me make the interface a little bit bigger so that you can see it when we revisit it again. And the Cloudmesh code is checked out. We have a Cloudmesh directory. We cd in this directory. And we can see that the source code is located here. Let us proceed. We have already cd'd. Now, since I'm running this on OS X, I simply can say /install system. On Ubuntu, you should probably use sudo in front of this. And because I have already installed it, not much will happen. But here, for example, as notice, oh, I have already Homebrew installed because I ran it previously. So I'm typing in now my sudo password. And if it would not be installed yet, everything would be fine. Would be installed now. Now here in this particular case, everything is already installed, so it has not much to do. But it may take quite a while in case the packages are not yet installed. Once you have done that, you need to be installing the requirements. So let's do that. This is being done via the install requirements command. And again here, since I've previously run this, it already noticed I don't have to do anything. It just skips the particular activities. And it's also important to note that this install requirement is different than pip install -r requirements.txt because we are installing it in a particular order in order to, for example, deal with the installation of NumPy and matplotlib. Now we are completed. Again, this may take much longer on your machine since you haven't done this yet. And in the next step, we will be talking about how do you create new users. After we have now installed the requirements, we want to install a number of configuration files. This is being done via the new flag or option in install. So we say install new. And here a number of files are being created in the user directory Cloudmesh. And here we have cloudmesh.yaml. These files can be edited by you to, for example, change certain values. Let's just go ahead and do this. We go ahead and edit. In my case, I'm using Emacs user/cloudmesh/cloudmesh.yaml. So here we find, for example, information about the first name. Let me put my first name in, the last name, maybe my office phone number. And then my username that I may have on the system. And that would be, in my case, this particular name. Actually, it's so now we have modified the YAML files or a minimum set of YAML files, and now we need to be installing it. Even if you haven't done the editing that I've done in the previous step, you still can run this command. It will just use the default values that are being provided in the default YAML file. So let's install now Cloudmesh. And now Cloudmesh is going to be installed. And it puts Cloudmesh into the virtual environment. And that's all there is to do. And you can see this is quite fast. And to check out if we have installed it successfully, you can say which Cloudmesh. And it is indeed in the environment installed. So I can, for example, test it out and say simply cm. And I am now in my Cloudmesh. A couple of warnings are being started here because I'm not yet running the servers that are needed for Cloudmesh to interact with the database. These we will be doing later on. So let's quit Cloudmesh, and we are now back in our directory. One of the things that we previously did is we set up an account on Future Systems. Currently it's still called futuregrid.org, but in future this will be Future Systems. So one of the things that we need to do is let's create, for example, portal name. This is my portal name. You should be putting your portal name in there. And this allows us now to execute, for example, this particular command, and to test out if we can log in into the system. So naturally I have to specify future grid in order to get there. And there we go, we are actually in that future grid cloud system. And we have achieved a successful login. However, we would like to continue setup is our Cloudmesh on the local desktop. So let's exit this. And we need to verify that we can log in into this. For the next two steps, we fetch our credentials from the particular India machine here. And we type in our name. And then after fetching, we create it. And this will be making certain modifications to the cloudmesh.yaml file and put your credentials for the Cloud India into it. So now you can further inspect this and make further corrections. The other thing that we need now to do is you probably have already uploaded your SSH key, but we will be using the SSH key at one point for our cloud activities. And we need to be creating, for example, a key. I typically just use my IDRSA .pub key, so I don't actually execute this particular command because I have already one, and I prefer to just use my one key on that particular machine. Now what we have to do is we have to reset the database. So this is being done and will take some time, so be patient with this. Sometimes we have heard this particular command has to be executed twice. Also be aware that there is a password being used. This password is being currently set in Cloudmesh _server.yaml. Please go into that file prior to running this command to change the password. And then it will ask you for another password. This is not the password for the databases, but the password for how do you log in into our portal. So you will be punching in a password that has at least 6 characters, and use one that is strong, not just a very weak password, so that no one can break in. So this has now created the database and has successfully created some of the machines in our inventory. And that's all that there is in order to set up Cloudmesh. One of the things that we really need to do is we need to be adding our key to the Cloudmesh database. That's what we do next. So I'm now adding my key to the database. Now I also need to be adding my default project ID, and remember we had 452, so we should probably just for purpose of consistency add our project ID to 452. And if you have a different project, please use a different project number. And we need to be adding this as a default project in our cloud. And now 452 is our project. So we can also look, for example, what the project command is doing, and there we can see since we have now active projects, the 2 project, the 452 project, and the 452 project is also being our default project. I can naturally add other projects in case I were to work with other projects here. So let's, for example, say this I would like to work with my project name FG82. That's another project I'm involved with. Now, if I call CM project, it will list that FG82 is now my default project. So one of the things that I can now do is I can start the Cloudmesh server. For that, I just pull up a new directory. So I need to be going to the directory where I have my code installed. Let me set the prompt to some that is less intrusive. So and in here we are starting now the server. And again, the server start will take a little while because we are not starting only the MongoDB database, but also some background process as part of Celery and RabbitMQ, and set up all the services that are necessary for running Cloudmesh. So let's take already a look what will happen next. After we have started the service, we will be seeing a web interface. Here it's already coming up on 5000 localhost. And you will wonder, oh, there's an empty page. Well, the reason the empty page comes here because our program to start the web page was coming too early, so the service was not running. So let's press the refresh button. And here is Cloudmesh, as you can see it. And this is the same view that we showed in the overview page from Cloudmesh itself. And now you can inspect and browse the Cloudmesh services that are available as part of the graphical user interface. Or you can interface with the command line tool, or you can write your Python.